Hey guys, I'm Mike at Mixed-Up. Today I'm going to begin a kind of series that I think will probably help out a lot of new woodworkers that really struggle with some more intimidating, confusing, or misunderstood things around the shop. Things that maybe they've seen other YouTubers or other woodworkers or other makers consistently have in their shops, available for their use, but they're kind of sketched out by them because they really don't make a lot of sense. We're going to start with a big one, the table saw. Now there's 1,000 different videos out there talking about 10 essential safety tips for the table saw, 5 must-have accessories that you have to have for the table saw. All of those things actually boil down to something really simple, 2 things that you need to know. Once we know those, we are good to go. Let's go ahead and get started, huh?
I see some writer, it's how making better. Oh.
So the beginning of our journey starts right here. The old things. Now mine happens to be a Craftsman 113. This thing is about 40 years old. So it doesn't have a rising knife. It doesn't have a blade break. It doesn't have dust collection. It doesn't have any of those crazy things that everybody tells you that are must-haves for your table saw. But it still works. The motor is loud. There are more things on this than OSHA would ever decide to improve these days. And even more importantly, check this out. When I got it, it didn't have a fence. It doesn't have any of the bells and whistles that you get on a new saw. And the fence is homemade, but it works. And it does the job, and it's calibrated. That's one of the things that we'll talk about in the video later. I made my own outfeed table. There's no fancy throat plate with kickback pawls, no dust collection beneath. What you see here is exactly what you'll find in thousands of garages. And my opinion is, if you can't learn on this kind of setup, you're probably not going to learn the right things at all. Let me elaborate on that for you. I think that a basic understanding of the tool is necessary in order to be able to operate it safely, and simple reliance on safety mechanisms in order to keep you safe leads to a sense of complacency. It makes you so that you're more reliant on the machine's functions to keep you safe than your own awareness, which is number one for any of these tools and machines. I keep my safety switch right there for an easy bump of the leg as my safety shut off. So yeah, it's got plenty of limitations. Tools like this make you better because they don't offer you any shortcuts. And when you're learning, shortcuts are the last. This right here is an exaggerated version of saw. The void left behind when the blade is cutting through a piece of wood. And I cut this out of a piece of old scrap in order to demonstrate. So you can see what the blade is actually doing and what makes the table saw so scary at times. It all boils down to one principle. And every guide block, every crosscut sled, every feather board, everything that they ever sell you to make this saw safer is based on one premise. And that is kickback. Kickback and binding. So, as you can see, my blade is parallel to the kerf. No problem whatsoever. All we have to do is keep it in that curve, and everything runs just fine. The problem arrives when this happens. The minute I've applied rotational force to the blade, I've introduced forces it wasn't ready for. Certainly not designed for, and probably something you weren't ready for. Now this is simply put, that as the blade is turning, you see what the wood is doing? The sawtooth grabs the wood and shoots it back at you. This is a kickback. This is what you need to worry about. This is where people get hurt. One of the 2 biggest ways they get hurt. So as long as we keep our cut running parallel through the blade without causing a bind, then this saw will be safe. The same premise applies for when you're using a crosscut, sled, or a fence. Its entire purpose is there to make you guide that cut straight through the blade without causing any deviation. So that leads to something you may have heard other people say as far as a safety tip. Let's go back to the top. Now, let's say I've got my crosscut fence set up and ready, and I'm making this cut. Now, the minute that this falls out of square, the minute another kickback event happens. So this is why they tell you to never run your fence, crosscut, sled at the same time. Because once you finish the cut, this off-cut piece will be left here. And if it deviates in any way, it's going to grab the blade, fly right back at you, and it's going to be a really bad day. So that's my first big safety tip. And it will make so much more of the other things people sell you make sense. Like a feather board, or a crosscut sled, or a push stick. Well, the push stick we'll get to in a minute. All of these things are geared to get you to guide the wood straight through the saw without any steering one way or the other. Here's where you can make judgment calls that I think make total sense. As long as you're paying attention to that swing back and forth, that tilt rotation that I was talking about, the more you do that, the more you're going to understand that your crosscut sled is holding that thing nice and square so that it will never rotate. Your fence does the exact same thing, giving you something to reference up against so that you never end up causing that rotation. All of these are important, but every operation that you make with a table saw, as long as you approach it from the understanding that you need to minimize any rotation that could possibly happen with the material you're going to cut, the more you can minimize that, the better off you're going to be. So that's step one. And I hope that explains a lot about what I'm talking about as far as these different jigs that everybody tells you to do. Because that is probably one of the two biggest ways that this thing will get you. Now we'll talk about the second aspect that I think is the most important, which is keeping your fingers out of the blade. I know, it sounds like it makes total sense, but you'd be surprised how many people just start getting complacent and they decide that they're just pushing things through here, and all they see, because it's such a whir, that blade is spinning so fast, you just see this little disc. And you don't think about the fact that it's got 40 teeth of destruction spinning at you at thousands of RPMs. So you start to get complacent. You start pushing wood through there, and you're shoving, and you're moving, and this and that, and next thing you know, you accidentally touch the thing, and now 10 has become something less than 10. The push stick. Most table saws come with one. I end up cutting my own all the time. This thing gets a lot of bad rap sometimes, but it's actually quite useful for one purpose. It follows the rule. I'll tell you the rule in just a minute. The rule must be adhered to if you like saving your digits. As you can see, this guy has definitely seen better days. He has been working and working and running into this thing again and again. So it'll be time to make another one. If you want to learn how to make one of these push sticks, I can absolutely show you how to do so. But push sticks, push blocks, all of these accomplish one thing. The rule of the fist. If you're absolutely unsure and you have any doubts as to if you're too close to the blade, make a fist. If your hand is going to be closer than the width of your fist, you need to change it up. You need to go to a different option, like a push stick, like a push block, like a different setup for the cut. If you stay with the rule of the fist, that's going to keep your hand relatively safe. That's going to keep you out of harm's way. You may even go so far in the beginning as to create a bit of a buffer zone. Just draw yourself a mental little circle that lets you signify, I'm not going to enter that area with my hand whatsoever. I'll enter that area with an inanimate object, like a push stick or a push block, but I'll never pass this point with my hand, ever. So think of yourself like a safety buffer about the size of your fist, going all the way around that saw. Don't ever put your hands in that area. Push sticks are not just for small pieces. They're for anywhere that your hand is going to potentially enter that buffer zone. I don't care if you're cutting a sheet of plywood or a matchstick. If your hand is going to go in that buffer zone, find a way to do it so that your hand does not get in that buffer zone. I'm going to set up a cut with our practice board that I cut the curve on so that we can show when I make the decision as to when I'm getting a little too close to the blade. Now that the cut complete, let's talk about what I did there that may be a little bit different or counterintuitive from what you thought. If you notice, I used the push stick to continue pushing my piece, but I didn't push it here. Most people have the idea that pushing it up against the fence is the best idea, when it's actually not, and I'll show you why. If I push here, then I guide my piece squarely up against my fence. If I push it here, I want you to take note of what happens to the board. Did you see what I just did? I introduced the rotation I was talking about in the first rule. Not good. So when I push, I want to push in a way that's going to allow me to make that rotation kick into the board, into my fence, so that it maintains the first rule. Not bad, right? Now the push stick gets a lot of hate. A ton of hate. And it's more than just a scrap of plastic or a scrap of wood. By the way, I would suggest making your own out of wood rather than plastic, as the cheaper versions tend to be made out of something called ABS, and they're really prone to shattering, which is a bad thing in the middle of the table saw cut. I'd much rather cut a curve at the end of mine than have it blow up. This thing is more than a chunk of wood. This is an extension of your body. It lets you guide material through the curve while maintaining the lack of rotation and keeping you out of that buffer zone. Your fence and its alignment are absolutely crucial to making sure that you adhere to the first of the two rules, avoiding rotation. And you want to stay in line with the blade. Now, I'm showing you on my saw because I actually have a homemade table saw. That's not a problem. I can show you exactly how we make sure that's calibrated, and we'll be good to go. All right, so now we're going to talk about how I calibrate my table saw fence, or ensure that it's calibrated regularly every time I make a cut. Here we go. I actually utilize a digital micrometer. Now what I do is, if you look very closely, you'll see that there are carbide teeth that are wider than the body of the blade. So I'll measure from the carbide tooth, lock my fence down in a particular position, and then take note of the distance between the edge of the carbide tooth and my fence. In this case, 1.283 inches from the outside of the carbide to my fence. Now all I need to do is ensure that I have the same measurement on the other side, 1.2825. So I am off by 5 thousandths of an inch. I think that's close enough. The more you have equal in the distance from the front of your blade to the back, the safer your cut is and the less you introduce that rotation. I would rather sacrifice the end of this than the this. The last practice I can tell you about that will probably help you more than anything else is that you can be confident around the table saw. You can be knowledgeable, you can be experienced. Don't ever be brave. Be respectful Be mindful. Be precise. Be thought out. But the minute you get brave is the minute it's going to prove that it's tougher than you. So at the end of the day, that should get a beginner started and at least a lot more comfortable as far as the table saw is concerned. As long as you follow those two basic rules. Avoid rotation and keep out of the buffers. Once you do that, the rest of it will come to play. You will have other scenarios where things become interesting, such as when you make a cut and there are stresses in the wood that end up binding. There are several other things that I won't cover in this video. This is just really beginner basics. If you want a more in-depth deep dive on the table saw, I'm happy to do so. I've got no problem doing that. I can make a members-only video that shows exactly all the ins and outs that you need about the table saw to make you an absolute pro with this thing. I'll make sure that this video is also uploaded not only to YouTube, but Mike is making stuff.com. Feel free to join over there and join into the discussion. We've got a blog forum with comments. We've got all kinds of cool things for you to experience over there, as long as an archive of all my videos. So let's recap. No rotation. Rotation is bad. Any tool, implement, jig, or fixture that prevents rotation of material while it's going through the table saw is a good thing. Don't forget the rotation that you potentially have between the blade and the fence. You don't want that to happen. So again, don't use your crosscut sled and your fence at the same time. Don't use your miter gauge and your fence at the same time. Push this, push blocks, other implements, they're not optional. They're discipline, and you need to be mindful of that discipline at all times when you're running the tapes. If this video got you rethinking how you move in your shop, good. Again, if you'd like to, I've built a deeper dive on the table saw. I will continue with other in the series so that I can talk to you about other machines such as the miter saw, the joiner, the planer, the bandsaw. There's a ton of other machines that I think have a lot of misconceptions around them that I can help you guys simplify, demystify, and feel a little bit better about. If you like what you received today, listen, I know nobody likes doing these kind of things, but I have to do so. Please consider joining the channel. The membership helps me to propel these videos to be able to get you and other new woodworkers, new makers, the information that they could definitely use to make what they want and feel good. In advance, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Make sure to sign up and register at mikeismakingstuff.com. We'll also be putting out newsletters, blogs, other informational resources. The DIY plans are coming soon. We'll also have some other ideas that I think will be quite fun for a lot of you. Until then, I hope you got something great out of this video. I appreciate you sticking around to the very end. See you next one.
I fix them right up. It's our making better.